guys played with barbless hooks, like commercially barbless? So my theory on barbless, and I'll give you my strong opinion here, but if you take a barbless hook and do this test, if you get some barbless hooks, take a bag and poke it through the bag, okay? Now take a hook in the same size with a barb and poke it through the bag, and you'll notice how much more pressure you need to be able to fully get that hook barb in. So in my opinion, if you fish barbless, you'll actually hook more fish because you don't need to use as much pressure, and you're going to hook them deeper than you will with a barb, therefore retaining your fish. I pretty much fish all barbless unless I'm throwing big streamers or whatever, and then I usually pinch the barb before I start fishing them. But if you do that, you know, I haven't noticed my landing rate go down at all. It's just the same. If you know how to fight a fish with a barbed hook, you'll be just fine fishing barbless. It's better for the fish. It's better for you when you hook yourself in the back of the head. It's better for you when you're fishing with a guy that's never fished before and you've told him, don't stand behind me while I'm casting 40 times, and he gets hooked in the face. That happened once. His name wasn't Curtis this time though. So, all right, this is the Arex 531 hook. It's nice, similar to the Tiemco 200R. Really good hook for stimulators. And for this is a size 8, so I'm going to use 140 denier UTC for this one as well. So I will just kind of tie a little bit down the bend. And I'm going to make a little bit of a bump here at the back. And for the tail on this, you can use a bunch of different stuff. You can use elk hair, you can use moose, you can use deer, you can use whatever. For the tail on this one, I'll use Nature Spirit Select Cow Elk hair, which is really, really good. It doesn't flare too terribly much. And for the wing, I'm going to use Nature Spirit Stimulator deer hair. So I'm just going to get a little clump of this hair, and for this much hair I can usually just use my fingers to pull out any of the underfluff. That's very critical if you're going to align the tips. And then I have this little tiny Renzetti hair stacker. And the reason I like this is because with these smaller clumps of hair, they stay kind of closer together and they line up really well. So once those are aligned, Stimmy has a pretty short little tail, so you can just eyeball it however you like, but for a size 8, I'm going to go right about there. So as I wrap this on, you can see the more pressure I put on this, the more the hair wants to flare. See that? And that's fine because I have that little bump behind there. Some people tie stimmies with zero flare on the deer hair at all. I think that a little bit of flare on the hair on the tail of a stimulator actually helps with the buoyancy because it creates more surface tension. So I'm going to tighten that down. Now this is kind of a tricky part. Do not let go of the tail until there's no tension, right? If you're still cranking down on this when you let go of the tail will spin around the hook. So I'm going to let go of that. That's a little bit too flary for me, but I'll show you how you can fix that. So I'm going to take all this hair, I'm going to pull it upward, and I'm going to gently wrap my thread forward to where I want the head of the fly to be. Then I'm going to pull all those those fibers forward, and the reason I don't trim it off in the very back is because that creates a big old bump, and it won't create a very proportionate fly. So I just did a few collecting wraps here, and there's no tension on that deer hair, just enough to get them all gathered together, and then I'll pull that tight and then wrap my thread back toward the tail. You could even do a body like that and it would look super cool, but I don't. So once I get back here, I'm going to unwind my thread so that it's nice and flat, and then I'm going to put some very loose wraps right up where the hair comes off. And you see how that tamed that tail? And now we're good to go. That's how to set a tail on a stimmy. The little bit more work than it's probably necessary. Then I'm going to pull all these fibers up and just get rid of them. No waste bins, so Dave gets to vacuum those off the floor. Okay. So once I have that in, I gotta find it, but Big B gave me some wire. You can use wire to counteract hackle on a dry fly. It's totally fine. It's not gonna create any less buoyant of a fly. What did he do here? So I'm going to pull off a chunk, and with this wire you don't even need to use your scissors. You just break it off the spool, and that way you preserve your blades. So I'm just going to tie this in. And now we'll do the body. So I don't know, we'll do what color is this? Brown. I'm using hairy ice dub. You can use literally any product you want for stimulators, because it's got hackle wrapped into it or wrapped over it. It's not gonna cause any issues. Okay, so I'm just gonna cover up my thread basically. And if you can, which I'm doing a little bit of, I'm building a little bit of a taper as I go forward. So you want it to be a little bit fatter in the front. So that's about where I'm going to have my wing come over it. So this technique, if you haven't tried it before, is called a reverse palmer. I'm going to take my hackle, tie it in, wrap it backwards, take the wire, tie off my hackle, and then wrap the wire forward. So that's a good way to get a nice durable one. So everybody seen this color before? This is a brand new color that only we have at our fly shop. It's called cinnamon pepper variant, but we got it straight from Whiting. We bought all of them that they had. We have a bunch over there that are left, but the idea is it's a ginger that's dyed over variant, so it gives it that speckling kind of buggy color. So even though this is a size 8, I'm probably going to use about a size 14 or 12 hackle to put on the stimulator body, because you don't necessarily need it to be like all the way down to the hook gap. So I'm going to prepare a little piece of hackle. I stripped off some of the stem, and I'm going to tie that in so that the shiny side is facing away from me. The reason for that is so when I start wrapping it, I want the shiny side facing forward. Okay? So I'm going to take one full turn, and then I'm going to start taking this backward. And it doesn't need to be super tight together. You can see that I probably could have chosen a shorter piece of hackle, but this one will surely work. So once I'm to the back, I just hold that straight up, and I do one full wrap of wire, and that's tied off. And now as I wrap forward, I'm just going to wiggle the wire, try not to trap down any additional fibers. And what this is doing is the wire is now catching that hackle stem with every single wrap of wire. So if a fish bites that and breaks the hackle stem at some point, it's going to be tied down in front and behind wherever the fish tooth hit it or wherever, and it won't fall apart. If that makes any sense. Is that right, Mark? I'm saying it right? All right. So I'm getting rid of that. Up here, I can just take the wire and helicopter it. Oh, that's a durable little piece. How are we doing with time? I think I'm done. Am I supposed to be done? No, we're good. So, I'm going to take the hair stacker again, and now I'll take my stimulator deer hair. You can use any hair on these that you want. You could even do a wing out of moose. So this one is a little bit healthier clump, and it has a little bit more under fur. So I'm going to take a comb and I'm going to brush all that under fur out. So you can see I got a bunch of stuff that will prevent it from aligning, and it will also make it absorb more water than you want. So you want to get all that stuff out of there. So 2 passes with this little metal comb and it's out. So here we are with our aligned tips. There were a few broken ones in there, but we won't worry about those too much. And I'm going to make this wing so that it barely goes into the tail. I don't want it to be super short, but I don't want it to be really long. Maybe halfway into the tail. So I'm going to pinch that with my offhand. I actually take my thread back where I want it. So I'll pinch that with my offhand, and you want to lay off on your thread on this part. Just do a loose enough wrap to kind of gather it. Do 2 wraps, and then I'll pull down. Okay. Now when I go forward, I can kind of work my thread through that hair a little bit, and do loose wraps through the hair, and then pull down or pull toward myself. And before I let go of this wing, I want to make sure that my thread tension is off. So that the wing is set in place. We can do a little bit to tame that, but that's basically how we set a stimmy wing. Now I'm going to wrap my thread forward again. This time we should be pretty secure. And I should have done this. I kind of let go of the wing just to kind of show you guys, but I can come in here now and trim this up at an angle. So my hair is all trimmed, and now I can really crank down on those butts. And that's about as much as you need to wrap it in. So if your stimmy wing is like all totally flared out like this, you can take a bodkin. Let's see. This foam's tight. You can take a bodkin and you can come up under the wing, and you can kind of curl the hair a little bit. So that's kind of a way to get it to sweep back a little bit, kind of a little trick. All right, so now we're going to choose about a size 10 hackle. Still don't want that full size 8, just because that's not how stimmies are designed. And we'll just wrap a front hackle real quick. If I can find one. This one's kind of a webby one, so I'll cut off quite a bit of it. Okay, I'm going to tie this in the same way I did the other one. And if anything, I want a little bit of stem showing after I tie it in. That way, when I start wrapping it, it wants to wrap the reverse way so that the shiny side's not facing forward. I can kind of twist it and maneuver it a little bit. Okay, so that's tied in. I'll just use, what color is this? Golden brown. We'll use golden brown for the head. And with the production stimulators, usually you'll have a really fine, smooth dubbing on the back and something more buggy up in the front. Okay, so once I have that dubbed on, I'll just take that and wrap it forward And I've got more dubbing than I need, so I'm just going to take that back off my thread. So that, see how that tapers down? If that were just a thread taper down, your hackle would want to slip forward. But with dubbing, it will dig down into the dubbing, so it's not as bad. So now I'll just take my hackle and wrap that forward through, tie it off. And I'll get those fibers out of the way to build a head. And that's basically it. So with the Stimulator, there are lots of different variations you can do. On our YouTube channel, we just put out a Stimmy with rubber legs on it. I also do a fly called the butt head, and the butt head has a CDC underwing. It has a hot spot for the head and the tail, and it doesn't have hackle on the body. So it's like a cheater stimulator, but it fishes really well. But if you fish any type of attractor, any type of terrestrial, Stimmies are a really good bet.